We got 3 minutes.
Is the lady from Fulton Mire going to come?
I haven't been in touch with her yet.
Of course you will, because I didn't go to the library. The forest, she said she speaks today. And I thought, she's a really good speaker. At least you got a book to sell.
Yeah, exactly. You're in touch with her, so I've got details of her, so I can see.
Oh, that's all right, no trouble. No trouble. But it was really interesting she was doing that review there at Gore. Now, what's the time? 14. Okay.
Sound here.
Good morning everyone and welcome. I'm Maura Stiles and I'm the President of the Otago Settlers Association. So we're really good today. We have got some Otago Settlers Association members, some Otago Art Society members and some people that are not members of either. But you're very welcome to join either organisation. I'm a member of both. And the Settlers you can join by going to the front desk or online, and the Art Society by either going down to the gallery and the railway station upstairs or online. So that's my little spiel. Now today it's my privilege to introduce Doug Hart, who's the past president of the Otago Art Society, and he's going to tell us about the history of the Art Society and also a special reference to William Hodgkins.
Thanks, Maura. Great. Lovely to see everybody here today. Fantastic. I hope to run through the life of William Matthew Hodgkins and also his links to the Dunedin Public Art Gallery and also to the Otago Art Society as well. It's a bit of a rambling journey. There'll be bits and pieces of side shoots and everything else to go down, little lanes to explore and so on. So it won't be just about him or the Otago Art Society. It'll be various buildings put in there and so on during the journey. I'd first like to thank Chris Watts for organising this. It's being videoed and being put on YouTube as we speak, and our links with the Otago Art Society with the Toitū have been very important and increasingly so. So I'd like to thank him and also the archivist here as well, the curator David. Right, and thank you to the staff as well. Okay, William Matthew Hodgkins. Now, this man is responsible for art, basically in New Zealand. He kick-started everything, especially in Dunedin, when Dunedin was the premier city of New Zealand. and it became the premier city of New Zealand purely from gold. So let's have a look at him and his life. And here he is in his latter years as president of the Otago Art Society. He was the second president of the Otago Art Society, the first president being John Irvine, who was a Royal Academician actually, and very skilled in the work. But that's a side shoot. Here's some work by him. You can see a wagon by a lakeside sketch, 1880s, and I'll talk about how he came about his artwork in a few minutes' time. To capture the storms in Otago was very much part of his work that he produced as raw brush strokes, very loosely painted, very quickly painted as well. And this is a wet day on the wild west coast. Now, to get here, he would have had to have taken a boat. He wouldn't have gone on a journey by horse. He'd have taken a boat round, possibly to Invercargill, Bluff, and so on, to actually paint these things. Well, his birth, he was born here in Liverpool slums, on 23rd of September, 1833. And a typical Dickensian look about that as well. We've got these horrible places where people live, the rookeries of Liverpool and the rookeries of London as well. They were called rookeries because people were stacked on top of each other in tenement buildings. Not a great place to be brought up in. He was born in the reign of King William IV, and this is a portrait by Martin R. Chashi, done in 1833. So Hodgkins knew two monarchs, this one here, King William IV, and also Queen Victoria. His mother was called Jane, and he had a sister also called Jane as well, who was born in 1835. And here we have some more photographic evidence of the Liverpool slums that he was born into. Now, his father was a brush maker, and he was very, very good at business until the 1840 Depression. And this forced him to move from Liverpool to Derbyshire, to Staveley in Derbyshire, because of the lack of work and so on. Now, he was a member of the Society of Brushmakers. Now, that's very interesting because I looked up the Society of Brushmakers, and it is one, I think it's the earliest trade union in the world, was this union of brushmakers. Even before the other societies were set up, this was the first society in a union. There we are. Even before the Toll Martyrs became a trade union in Dorset in England in 1786. Okay, so here we are. The family moved to Staveley in Derbyshire, and you can see where it is on the map up here. Picture of England there. The red bit is Derbyshire itself, the county of Derbyshire, and Staveley is located pretty close to the M1 actually, just there, running up there, the blue line. And here he is. We don't know much about Hodgkins' first early life, his actual childhood, we know very little about. Where he went to school, we know nothing about at all. I'm sure somewhere it's documented, but I couldn't find any evidence of it. So in 1852, he pops up in London, and he's very good at drawing. He's a graphic designer, he's a graphic artist, and he takes a job at a patent office, copying out documents of inventions at the patent office in Holborn in London, living in tenement buildings off the Holborn Bar Street here. I love the old photograph here of the streets of London in Holborn, without the horse manure, I may add as well, because I'm sure that if you lived in Victorian London, those streets would smell pretty bad compared to today, you know. And a lot of roses were probably growing in the little gardens around as people rushed out with their buckets and swept up the horse poo and stuck it on their roses. So here's some examples of his very early work. Copying out stamps and banknotes is what he actually did. And through his work, he got invited by a certain Captain Denny, which we know not very little about Captain Denny, apart from he was quite an influential person, had a very large project in Paris, to Versailles, copying documents and pictures for him. And here's a picture of the Palace of Versailles at the time, just outside Paris. As you see, a wonderful palace, but I'm sure that where he was working was not quite so grand as the Palace of Versailles. Again, he then pops back up in London in 1857, and he's copying documents for the galleries in London, the National Gallery, and he's working also at Hampton Court. And he sees this painting by Turner, and that, as you can see, is where Hodgkins gets his inspiration, because that is a great rendition of A Storm at Sea by Turner, an absolutely fantastic picture, and influences him and influences his work. And you can see here, between the two, Turner's very loose brushstrokes, very quickly painted, swirling storms, and here's Hodgkins' work, very much that misty look about Dusky Sound, and very, very quickly painted. It's a beautiful painting. And funnily enough, that's one of Turner's pictures actually as well, of Hampton Court Palace, which is quite not very Turneresque, is it, really? He worked here at the National Portrait Gallery as well, documenting the pictures, making copies of artworks in the actual portrait gallery. In 1857, his whole family, his parents, sisters, brother, moved to Melbourne. It would have taken them a long time to sail on the clipper ship to Melbourne, because at the time there was the gold rush. So they wanted to be part of the Australian gold rush in the Melbourne area. And that's why they went. They thought they'd have a better life in Melbourne. And you notice here is Cobb & Co. They've come a long way, haven't they, from where they are now? But yes, that's Melbourne in 1859. And here we are, the Victoria Gold Rush of the 1850s and the 60s. And I love the old photographs of the fossicas here. Fantastic. And I always say to people, and you've probably heard me say this time and time again, should record everything you see, whether you write about it, draw it, photograph it, paint it, model it, because one day it won't be there. And a photograph like this speaks volumes, that these are men dressed in rags, basically, living an incredibly hard life, panning for gold. You know, we think that as a tourist attraction now, don't we, when we go to, say, Queenstown, or, we'll do a bit of panning and so on. But this was their life, a very hard life, and documented in a photograph. Well, 2 years later, Hodgkins pops out of London, gets on a boat, a clipper ship here, the Thermopylae clipper, and sails with the White Star Lines to join them in Melbourne. And that is the actual boat that he sailed on. Now, there's a certain amount of this controversy about whether he actually went on this ship. I tried to look at the passenger lists of the White Star Line in 1859, but I couldn't find his name on them. On the voyage, he met this man here, Thomas Hocken. And as we know, founder of the Hocken Library, here he is. He was a surgeon on the White Star Line ships. And it wasn't until 1862 that Hocken actually came to Dunedin and settled down. But there he is, Thomas Hocken. And this is the port that Matthew Hodgkins would have sailed into, Port Chalmers. This is 1860 2 years before he arrived. But you can see how sort of fantastically small Port Chalmers really was in 1860. And again, I say to you, look, if no one drew that, you'd have no idea what Port Chalmers was like in 1860 or Dunedin in 1880 and so on. It's so important to document things. So here we are, 1862, in Dunedin. He arrives, the streets are still being made, Bell Hill's being bulldozed down by workers, hammer and chisel and bits of dynamite. So it is quite a rough sort of town to be establishing himself in. And he met George O'Brien here. He was a great architect, fantastic architect, engineer, painter, and this is Lawson's vision of Dunedin here. But George O'Brien is very much a paramount figure in Hodgkins' artwork, because George O'Brien's painting here, wonderful painting of Dunedin here, which is held at the Toitū here as well, he taught Hodgkins to paint. He taught him, had lessons from George O'Brien, and here we have Mitre Peak here. Great, again, what a wonderful rendition of climate and storms and water and so on, very quickly painted. Beautiful work, and very muted colours as well, because he only used certain colours. So here we are. He used blues, greens, and browns basically in all of his paintings. Fluid brushstrokes, fluid washes, and so on. A Turneresque style. And of course, you would have to be a very rapid painter, as the conditions in Otago, Fiordland changed so quickly, hour by hour, probably minute by minute. And something that I heard from David Hockney is when Hockney draws and paints, he is a person who constantly, very quickly sketches and puts colour down immediately on his iPad or his actual oils that he's using. So that continues to this very day. Love these old photographs, 1862, Rattray Street. Just wanted to show you these. This is one of my little avenues that I'm going to shoot down occasionally. Here's north of the Octagon. You can't believe that today, can you? Look at it, you know. And here as well. And look at that, amazing. Up the harbour there, no houses. You know, McAndrew Bay, not quite there, is it? Not quite. So he establishes himself not as a gold miner, not as a fossicker, but he goes straight into a business because he is a graphic artist. He goes and works for Giddies in Richmond as a law clerk, and he joins a Masonic lodge in 1864, which gains him a lot of friends and acquaintances. A very driven person, Matthew Hodgkins. And then he met and he married this lady here, Rachel Owen Parker. And although she looks a bit severe there, I'm sure she wasn't. I'm sure she was a very kind lady. There she's 19th of September 1865, married at St Paul's Cathedral here in the town, near to Cargill's monument there as well, in the Octagon. And here is the dapper man in 1865. His, what is he wearing on his head? That's what I'd like to know. Has he hurt himself? Has he got a bandage? No, it's probably the thing of the day, isn't it, really? But what a wonderful picture of Hodgkins there. Now, in 1865, he is so driven with artwork and so on, he establishes a photographic department in the exhibition, the South Seas exhibition, New Zealand Industrial Exhibition. And here is at the Illustrated London News here, and this is their drawing of the exhibition. Note, no photographs at the time, so everything was drawn. Imagine drawing that. You know, it's just an amazing piece of graphic work that's been done. Not by Hodgkins, but by someone from the Illustrated London News, sent out on a ship, sort of 2 to 3 months voyage to get here, to draw that, to take it back to London, to publish it in the Illustrated London News. You know, today, internet. instant. Then 6 months' work, possibly more, to get that back there. So that's what he does. Now, he works really hard at the Clerks, and he's admitted to the Otago Bar as a barrister. And of course, as the gold rush increases, the money pours into Dunedin, buildings are erected, contracts need to be worked out and signed, and so on. So his work earns him a lot of money. And he works here in Eldon Chambers in Princess Street. They had 4 sons and 2 daughters, Isabel, Francis, William, Percy, Gilbert and Francis. And this is Francis here, born on the 28th of April, 1869. And this firm here, Burton Brothers, is very synonymous with work of people in Dunedin, a very famous firm. So here he is. He's organised this fine art exhibition as well to start a gallery. And this is a page from that exhibition showing people what work was available and who did it and so on. Very driven. But I must say one thing here, in brackets, where is the Māori art? And still today I'm thinking, where is the Māori art? You know, we should be celebrating Māori art in our work around the town, in our galleries and so on. So that's one thing that's still missing today, I think. Here he is, 1873 again. Okay, and that's interesting enough here, it's got Melbourne here, which is very surprising, isn't it? So, this exhibition ran for 50 days. It attracted 5,000 people, a shilling a head. And in 1875, he formed the Society of Fine Arts. So women artists were permitted to join. Great step forward. But also, he took groups of people, artists around Otago, doing plein air painting as a group of people, even before he started the society. In 1876, the Otago Art Society was formed for gentlemen artists and enthusiasts, and its first president, as I said, was John Irvine, patron, and his patron was James McAndrew, great man of the time. And in 1879, when Irvine became ill, became president of the OAS, and he wanted to collect and purchase more paintings. And the OAS said, no, we're not doing that, we're going to turn it all down. And in 1882, the council finally agreed to acquire paintings. In 1888, the society moved to municipal chambers here, and the artwork was kept in a room here, and the public were not allowed to view it at all. So that was kept away. So against the principles of Hodgkins, it was secreted away from public view. In 1884, the Dunedin Public Art Gallery was formed here, and it was placed here in the Maritime Hall, the Otago Museum. Now, because of their wealth, they were able to afford a house at Royal Terrace, number 32 Royal Terrace, where Francis Hodgkins was born, and this is the house in Royal Terrace. It's not there today, but this is. This is 32 Royal Terrace today, 2021. Okay. A slightly different version of that, as you can see. Okay. Now this is very interesting because this is held in the Turnbull collection in Wellington, and it's William and Francis' notebook. Over 20 years, the family of Hodgkins contributed to this book. There are pages and pages and pages of work by Francis, William Hodgkins, the sisters, the brothers, and so on in this book. So if you ever go to the Turnbull collection, you can view it, okay? It's a fantastic resource of the work of the Hodgkins family. And here are some sketches that were done by Hodgkins as well. Dunedin Harbour, very quickly sketched there. Moray Place at night. a lovely rendition here of moody skies and wet pavements and so on. That's a lovely piece of work. Lake Waihola, 1892. You see the blues, the browns and the greens are used over and over again in these. And a sketch here of 1892, again at the Waihola here as well. I wonder if that building's still there. And have you noticed there's a steam train? Again, another piece here. Possibly Tomahawk Beach, but that's kind of, or maybe St Clair looking across. And here he is, he's either tickling the chin of this sculpture, I don't know what he's doing here, or he's measuring it for some reason, but or admiring it. In 1886, he formed the Dunedin Public Art Gallery, had the first exhibition, 186 works, which the public could view, and an exhibition in 1888, the Municipal Chambers in the Octagon as well. And have you noticed something else here? Tram lines. Bring back the trams. So Hodgkins is a person that this city needed, this country needed, because he began to pull together a lot of art from Europe to New Zealand. And he started off by acquiring art. The Otago Art Society bought art through its exhibitions held at the South Sea exhibitions and so on. He brought in people like Millais, Edward Landseer. But of course, at the time, it wasn't New Zealand art. It was Australian art they were trying to pull in as well. There were no real New Zealand artists at the time, not really appreciated. So many people came to see this European art, this English art, this French art, and so on. And here are some of the paintings that the OAS bought over time and exhibited at the exhibitions. Adoration of the Magi by Herbert Rogers, The Broomielaw, Glasgow, Andrew Black, Valley of the Isar, Ludwig Schell, and these portraits here purchased with funds from the OAS. And he loves me and he loves me not. Charles Perun, yeah, there we are. And available to be seen at the Dunedin Public Art Gallery as well. Now, Hodgkins had a lot of wealth and all of a sudden he lost it. Totally lost it. His business was failing. He had possibly the Otago gold rush was nearing the end. The money was coming out of the city. The money was going to Wellington and possibly Auckland. So he fell on to bad times. And he rented this house in Ravensbourne. And in 1888, he was made bankrupt. And of course, he held a position as the West Harbour Mayor and had to give up his position there as well. But this is his house that he rented in Ravensbourne. Quite a significant piece of work was produced from his house. It hangs in our gallery at the railway station. It's approximately 25 centimetres by about 18 centimetres. It's not very big, but to me, it is a fantastic painting. It is one of the best paintings of Hodgkins I've ever seen, and it tells a story. The story of Hodgkins' bad times. There's the rented house, there's his wife, and who is pegging out the washing but Francis Hodgkins? That is a significant painting, I think. So it shows the life that Francis was brought up in. A great artist, as we know Francis Hodgkins was, inspired by her father. And here's another photograph of that cottage in 1888. That cottage is no longer there. It's been obviously demolished and something else put in its place. But if it had, I'd love to have gone and photographed it today. Well, in 1889, things changed for the better. And he is back in town, renting a house in town called Cranmore Lodge. And he organises the art department at the New Zealand South Seas Exhibition. And all these buildings here, they look posh, but they're not really because they're made of wood and corrugated iron. And that is a photograph of the South Seas Exhibition. And here is a poster of that exhibition, not drawn by Hodgkins. Could have been, I suppose, but this is it. The wonderful piece of graphic artwork here as well with Hodgkins. And looking down the big halls, you can see here, you can see the framework of wood. It must have been a fantastic place to have gone to show the best of New Zealand art, agriculture, various bits and pieces to do with New Zealand. People came from far and wide. They travelled from Australia by their tens of thousands to go to this exhibition. It was one of the biggest events in the Southern Hemisphere. 625,000 people visited this exhibition. The population of Dunedin was 35,000 people. You can see the scale of this. And here are the artworks displayed in this exhibition. Works by Landseer and Millet. People looking very posh there, admiring the things. And here is a ground floor plan of the building as it was at the time here. And you can see things like the Great Britain Foreign Court, so British work was here, and implements of agriculture here. There was a concert hall, a dining hall, and here's the gardens here, beautifully landscaped as well. So it was a huge exhibition. Here's Cranmore Lodge. This is where he rented, and quite a posh house. And here he is painting in Cranmore Lodge on one of his canvases here. And here's Francis Hodgkins at Cranmore Lodge reading a book, but an amazing, amazing artist. And look at the walls of his house. They are covered in paintings. And again, more pictures of Cranmore Lodge. That's one of his daughters here. Here's Matthew, a dour-looking wife, son, and Francis here as well. And here she is again in 1892, looking very pensive. And here she is milking a cow. Francis Hodgkins milking a cow. Look at that. Would you believe it? And there's the maid over there. There's Fanny the maid. And there's the cow. 1890 to 1905, after the South Sea Exhibition, the Otago Art Society and the Public Art Gallery at the time bought some of the buildings. Some of them were sold off to farmers for sheds, and they bought a couple of these, and they erected them in the Otago Museum grounds, where they remained for many years. In 1892, 163 members, and by 1897, it's actually increased. But the sheds were cold, they were damp, they were hot, they were dusty, they were cobwebby. The painting started to suffer. So something had to be done to preserve these wonderful works of art by Millet and Landseer and so on. So in 1890, they established the Dunedin Public Art Gallery Society and had a permanent site here, erected by the DCC. They built this building, which you are in now. Okay, eventually housed here, the new wing, and the DCC were very, very good with support for the society here. And here's a great picture at the time here. The OAS donated large sums of money to set this up, and to donate the paintings to the Dunedin Public Art Gallery as well. 1907, you can see here, there's the building, there's the railway tracks, And of course, this would be dusty, dirty, and so on as well from the steam trains. But the OAS were permitted to hold exhibitions there 4 a year. They were allowed 4 weeks a year to put their exhibition together. So establishing the Dunedin Public Art Gallery through money, they were only allowed to use that building for 4 weeks a year. Well, Hodgkins died in 1898, and he's survived by, of course, Francis and his sons over here, Bert, Frank, Percy, and Francis, and 2 daughters. Now, in 1922, the Dunedin Public Art Gallery and the OAS were merged together because people were members of both. In 1924, there we go, we give all our fantastic work to the Dunedin Public Art Gallery. No contracts were signed there. In 1927, the Dunedin Public Art Gallery moved to Cumberland Street here in Logan Park. And the building was purchased by the Sargood family. And you can see there's the exhibition. So on that site there, they purpose-built, funded by the Sargood family, the Dunedin Public Art Gallery. And here is some information about the Sargood family. There they are. Okay, philanthropists. Their factory in business here. Part of his empire, actually, the Sargood Empire, making boots and shoes and so on. There we are. I actually love that. I'd love to have a print of that on my wall. I really do love graphic design. Anybody? Oh, and look, it's the warehouse now. Not really, no. Just kidding. And here's the Dunedin Public Art Gallery at the time in Logan Park, opened by the Duke of York. Now it's been, I don't know if it's been demolished, but it was plans to demolish it. But there were also plans by DCC in 1912 or 1980 or something to develop it into something else. Anyway, here's the interior of the Logan Park Gallery, the Dunedin Public Art Gallery. And the OAS were, again, allowed exhibition space for some of their work. Again, another view of the interior of the Dunedin Public Art Gallery there as well. Well, the gallery that was here proved to be so noisy and dusty from trains that it was then moved to Logan Park, as we've just seen. And in 1930, much bad feeling was happened between the OAS and the Dunedin Public Art Gallery over people who were not artists selecting work for exhibitions and trying to organise exhibitions. There's a lot of acrimony about these people who were trying to implement these exhibitions, had no knowledge of art in itself. The DCC took over the gallery, and it became, as we know, the Settlers Museum. Okay, Depression years, the 1930s, the war years. Many members of the Otago Art Society donated their works of art to be sold as a war effort and so on, and a revenue falls. In 1939, the Otago Art Society, in their wisdom, reject the works of Colin McCann and say it's not what we want. It's not what we want at all. Oh no, it's too contemporary. So Colin McCann withdraws his work entirely and support, trashes the OAS in comments, and the young artists of the day remove their work in protest. There's a similar story about Ralph Hotary as well. So the Otago Art Society could have had works donated by Colin McCann and Ralph Hotary, thus securing its financial interest for the next 20 years or more. There we are, a different story. Eventually, though, the OAS splits from the DPAG, and eventually, after many years, decides it needs a home. The old post office was in dire need of renovation. It was to be demolished. It was due to be demolished. It was such a bad state. But there was one saviour in all of this, and that was Shona McFarlane, ex-president of the OAS. She said, we'll lease this building, we'll renovate it, and it will be a preservation on the whole of this wonderful old building here. We will not have it demolished. And she fought for that very hard. And here are the plans that she had here. And they thought they would do, this is the gallery space, and they would take down some walls and enlarge it and so on. Then there was the upper gallery, which I understand was accessed by a ladder as well, a steep ladder. So if anyone wanted steep stairs, was it? Oh, right. Right. So to view the upper collection, you would have to go and walk up these steep stairs, which didn't suit everybody, of course. Now, I acquired some slides. Oh, here she is. Here's Shona, assisted by Fred O'Neill, another famous artist of Dunedin, and took stage 4 exhibitions a year. I can tell you now that the Otago Art Society hold many more exhibitions than that. It incorporated the Photographic Society into the plans as well. Now, these slides were done by David Corbelis, another president of the Otago Art Society, and he put together this montage of work to persuade its members to move from Logan Park from the post office to the railway station. He encountered, I understand, a lot of opposition from members at the time. They did not want to move to the railway station. They thought it would cost a huge amount of money, and the Otago Art Society would go down the plug hole. So he put together these slides here. So I'll just show you these as well. The post office, vandalism attacks, it was getting trashed, especially on Fridays and Saturday nights, broken windows, graffiti and so on, cans and bottles left around, constant problems, as you can see in these old photographs here. So at the time it was 130 years old, the OAS, and it needed a permanent home. So Shona McFarlane saved the old Dunedin post office, and she also helped to save the Regent Theatre as well. And really, people like that are amazing, aren't they? To actually go about a campaign to preserve these things. I'm sorry, these things clicking around here. But there you go. If Shona was alive today, she would say, go for it. Go and get a gallery in the Dunedin into the railway station. Okay, so at the time, the Cleveland Art Gallery, run by Les Cleveland, another wonderful philanthropist of this area, had closed. They couldn't afford the rent. They were paying business rents. The OAS at the moment pay half those business rents, even though they're quite substantial. So the Cleveland couldn't afford to stay there. So they were offered a chance, the OAS were offered a chance to take it over. So here are the reasons why it was chosen. Vandalism, not a problem. More room to hang exhibitions permanently as well. More opportunities for sale of local artists' work, perhaps an operational name to fit in with the environment, marketing reasons. So here we are. This was the Cleveland Living Arts Centre, the Dunedin Railway Station, closed. And do you know, they've never painted those doors. They're still that colour. They're still chipped. It's a world-class building. It's the world's 200 must-see places. It has the Sports Hall of Fame. It has beautiful flower borders outside. And it has wonderful artwork. It has a clock tower and a busy bus station too. That's why you should always record things, because who would have known that the Dunedin railway station was a bus station as well? So here are some more views of it. Yeah. So Saturdays you've got a farmer's market. So why not an art market? Why not? And at the time, this place had big plans as well, because they stuck a big thing on the end of here, didn't they? Which a lot of people complained about at the time, but it is a fantastic piece of architecture. That wonderful ship's waka prow coming out of the museum. Brilliant. Anyway, so they got big plans. And also at the side of we had the Chinese gardens were going to be established as well. So all those reasons are very important in establishing the Otago Art Society in the railway station. 500,000 visitors go through every year. That changed a few years ago. I don't know why, but thing called COVID, I think, probably cropped up there. But we're almost back on those figures again. Beautiful artwork, 750,000 Royal Dalton tiles in that place. And look, these wonderful things, these wonderful sculptures here. And I'll show you another one here. There's the window. A lot of honeymoon couples, new married couples, stand in front of that window to have their photograph taken, even today. And that is Royal Minton china, imported from the UK, and a beautiful frieze around it. So it's historical in every way, that railway station. So here we are. This is where we are now. We're in here, in this top half. And here's some photographs, the passenger lift, which I informed, the DCC informed us that they are going to replace. They ordered one, it arrived somewhere in Dunedin. It's too big to go in there. So they're going to have to revamp it and make it bigger for this lift to go in there. So don't hold your breath. It might be 2028 before that happens, but still, we'll see how it goes. And I love the old shots here of what it used to look like before we took it over. A view down the galleries, loads of space. You know, the main gallery there where the heritage painters are today. Rooms here. So it was purpose-built really for an art gallery, for an art society really. Even a kitchen. There we are. Which the Cleveland used for classes as well, I understand. And here's the Heritage Gallery as well. And the room used for the office by the Cleveland and so on. And here are the toilets, which actually are a bit cluttered at the moment, but there we go. And they've all been blocked off, by the way, you know, so occasionally somebody has to get a bucket of water and sluice it down there. Otherwise, it's not very nice. And here are the floor plans that they drew up to actually go into, so the OAS could use it. So, the new home, and this is David Corbellis's idea for calling the Otago Art Society Art Express, which didn't actually come about, but it was a great idea at the time. So here we are. Surviving COVID, surviving cruise ship installations, and we're still thriving. And two of these members are here today. I won't point them out, but they are here today, having a great time. There they are. And we've had world-class watercolourists, world-famous watercolour artists here, demonstrations a couple of, about a month or so ago. Joseph Zubich here with one of his watercolours which he did at the time, which I watched him do. He's obviously done it about 100 times before, because he just went, done, another one, $250,000. Yeah, great, good ways to make money. But no, that's not true. But you know, he was very skillful. Watching him do that is amazing. And here we are. This is a fringe exhibition, and each one of those, I can vouch for this because I made whole strings of these from strips of paper stapled together in order and then put into this massive installation for the Fringe Festival. And here we are, some more silly people acting up at the Fringe Festival. They're trying to attract people in. And our current president here is Brendan Ihalf. This is Janet Devart. That's Help me out, Jen. Sarah Freiberger, Mari Gomez-Bradford, and look, who's here? An incredibly famous artist. She is, world famous, Pauline Bellamy. Well, well, well. And here we are, some budding new artists here now. Look, here's Sarah and her 2 children. So here we are. We're an inclusive art society. We're not snobby. We accept anybody. We give people a chance to explore their artwork. We give people a chance to achieve their ultimate aim of producing creative works, whether it be in fabrics, whether it be in watercolour, oils, acrylics, clay, any medium. We encourage it. We are inclusive. And we are volunteer-led, because without our volunteers, it would never run. It just never would. The amount of work that goes into these exhibitions is enormous. So we seek to bring out the best of our environment. And this is Rose Shepherd here, actually, who used to run the Suter Gallery in Nelson as one of her wonderful new volunteers, and is on the OES Council now. And she used to coordinate the world of wearable fashion as well in Nelson before it moved to Wellington. So yeah, Rachel, an incredibly accomplished artist. And at the moment, if you haven't been, you should go here, the Cleveland National Art Awards from the 6th of May to the 3rd of June. Go in, have a look, it's worth it, it's fantastic. The amount of work in there, 179 pieces of work of a huge range, ranging from things that you go, wow, that is amazing, to things that you go, what? Go and have a look. Get a credit card out as well, as another tip. And very soon we'll have the Edinburgh Awards coming up, and entries are now open for that. So the 2023 Edinburgh Premier Art Awards are happening. And that's been opened up to the entire country now, not just South Island. We decided that we would bring it into sort of more people to put into it. Okay. And here are some notable presidents. I could have mentioned loads of these, but I wouldn't, apart from me. But there we are. Look, 147 years of history. There we are. Thank you very much.
Question is, there was 2 Francis Hodgkins. I figured out the first one was Frank, and Francis the artist was the last one. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
So they had 2 children named Francis.
Yes, they did, yes, yeah. Yeah. Sorry? Same way, yes, they were. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Right. Any other questions? Hello.
Thank you, it was terrific. I'm wondering how recognisable the people who contribute are. Would the people who helped found the society necessarily recognise who is a part of the society now, and what would they think of them?
Do you mean looking back on the people who founded it today?
Looking back and looking forward.
We have an incredible array of artists, you know. And I think at the time, in 1880, it was kind of quite selective who they allowed into that exhibition spaces. I think people were very reluctant to let, you know, just ordinary people join. You had to have some, I don't know, notoriety in art. But today, I think we always encourage people who can draw a circle and put a dot in the middle of it. We give people a chance. We nurture them. Nurture. So yes. Okay. Hello.
Francis, William Hodgkins considered Isabel Hodgkins to be a better painter than
Yes, that's, yeah,
But she stopped painting when she got married.
yeah.
But are there any paintings by Isabel around?
I haven't looked at that at all, and it's one of those things I should have checked up. Normally I do check up on things. I'm sure probably that some may be held here or maybe in Hocken, but I have heard that Isabel was a better painter. But so were the whole family. They were very good painters. All of them were good painters, encouraged by Matthew as well. So I can't really comment on that, but it's a very valid point that, you know, if there is work by Isabel, go and look in your attics, go and look in your boxes, because you might have a piece there. Okay.
A couple at the Hocken.
Oh, there is.
Papa. And there's also in the collection of the Christchurch Art Gallery, they've got, I think, one painting of hers as well.
Thanks. It's such, you know, when I do these presentations, it's such a wide topic. You sort of look at something, you're thinking, where's that? Oh no, there's that as well. And what do you leave out, and what do you research, you know? Because you want something that's comfortable to listen to, but not to go into those sort of really fine nitty-gritty details. So I do apologise if there's anything I've left out, which is probably hundreds of things, actually. Jenny?
Can I just point out one thing you've left out, Doug?
Yeah.
It's the Otago Art Society's annual exhibition. The Cleveland National Art Awards is on at the moment, and the Edinburgh exhibition was mentioned, but smack in the middle of that is our 147th annual exhibition. So I'd encourage you all to keep that in mind. Come to that. We sometimes get squeezed out by the sponsored exhibitions who obviously want to sort of elevate their names, and sometimes the Art Society itself sort of gets left a little bit in the backwash. So I know that the annual exhibition used to be the actual totally premier exhibition of the Art Society. I work as a tour guide at Ulverston, and there's a very close connection between the Thierman family buying work from the annual exhibition. People would come from Melbourne to buy work in the Art Society's annual exhibition. So I'd like to think that given a bit more energy from more volunteers or more committed members of the Art Society, of which we've got 400 members, but we need to elevate our own exhibition back to being a prestigious one as well, I think.
That's right. Imagine coming from Melbourne or Sydney to go to our exhibition. You know, you can't imagine people flying across the Tasman for a quick visit, can you? But, you know.
Thank you for this. It's created a great deal of interest, obviously, ongoing. You've taken, we took over the building. You've moved out, moved on. Francis Hodgkins was a well-known figure, and you have brought it all to life today. So thank you very, very much for doing that. Thank you.